Nigeria Center for Disease Control confirms 681 new COVID-19 cases as total cases tally 14,544. President Buhari sympathizes with families affected by COVID-19 as Nigeria celebrates Democracy Day. In international news, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development warns world economic output could shrink by more than 7.5%. And in sport, cast to decide Manchester City's UEFA ban in July.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Nigeria's COVID-19 cases is now almost 15,000. 681 fresh cases were confirmed on Thursday. Lagos recorded 345 cases. 16 other states also recorded cases. 4,494 patients have been discharged so far, and 387 persons have died in 35 states and the Federal Capital Territory. On the occasion of this year's Democracy Day, President Muhammadu Buhari has empathized with families who have been affected and lost a loved one to the COVID-19 outbreak. Buhari says in his June 12 Democracy Day nationwide speech, the coronavirus pandemic has brought pain and grief to the entire nation. President Buhari says the federal government has established a national robust response to provide guidance and leadership in tackling the pandemic nationwide. Nigeria recorded its first case of COVID-19 in February. More than 14,500 cases have been confirmed across the country so far. Still on President Muhammadu Buhari, who has said the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and other anti-corruption agencies have recovered 800 billion naira and more than 1,400 convictions. He said these recovered funds have been diverted into development and infrastructure projects. The president said the government has continued to implement accountability and transparent policies through the Open Government Partnership and the Transparency Portal on financial transactions. Buhari also said his administration has strengthened its auditing and accountability mechanisms to flush out corruption in the country. Pupils and students will stay longer at home because schools will not reopen anytime soon. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 says it is the responsibility of the government to protect the vulnerable, which includes the children. The PTF chairman, Boss Mustafa, said reopening schools at the moment is very delicate. He ruled out reintroduction of total lockdown in the country and says the commission would meet with security agencies to ensure stricter compliance with guidelines. Minister of Health, Dr. Osage Hanire, said 39% of COVID-19 confirmed cases were symptomatic, while 61% were asymptomatic. Life has gotten tougher for African journalists at a time when their work is more important than ever. Many independent media outlets are struggling to survive the financial fallout of the coronavirus pandemic. The coronavirus pandemic is devastating the livelihoods of many journalists across the continent. Reporter Laraba Murray has more details.
Empty offices and depleted revenue rocks this magazine outlet run by Dan Akpova in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. The crippling effect of the coronavirus on all sectors of the economy is felt more by the traditional media like this one. Advertising revenue remains a core stream of earnings for them. But as other businesses are forced to cut back on advert budgets, the outlet has lost more than half of its revenue since the lockdown.
The greatest challenge, like I said earlier, is lack of revenue. The revenues are not coming in like they should. We've lost 60% of the advert revenue that used to come, and that has a telling effect on the business. But I don't know how that's going to come back, because now people have gotten used to working remotely. So the coronavirus had made people look for different ways of doing things. So those advert revenues might not come immediately because the government offices, and private concerns who advertise with us, since they were forced to shut down because of the coronavirus or COVID-19, no longer advertised with us.
Without any loan intervention, publisher Dan Akpova has managed to keep all his staff on employment and payroll. A steady decrease in earnings continues to threaten the sustainability of businesses like his, and many other outlets have laid off staff and cut back on salaries.
It has affected us, even in terms of news gathering. It has affected us. Offices are not open. Places where you go to source stories are closed because of social distancing. Offices are not open. People are not going to work. And that has also impacted on advertising. We haven't cut any staff. We're tempted to, but we have not reduced any staff because we're resilient. And I know that some media houses cut staff strength, cut staff salary. We haven't done that. But it cannot continue like this. Something has to be done. Because if it continues like this, a lot of these warehouses will go out of business.
Meeting my staff every day is always a booster for me. And letting that go off has made work a bit no longer fun for me. So that is what I think I've had to forgo.
To stay afloat, most print media organizations have reduced sizes and copies of prints to save cost. Many are looking to leverage on technology and install paid online subscription for readers to access the contents.
Coming up, African stories. Death toll rises to 46 in Tunisia migrant ship disaster. And later, international news. Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, world economic output could shrink by more than 7.5%.
You are watching ANN. Somewhere in the world, every second of the day, news is happening. And of course, Nigeria is bustling with news day and night. That is why ANN doesn't sleep. Our eyes are peeled, wide open, so no story escapes our radar. We stay abreast of world events and happenings at home. We keep you up to the minute in the world of sports. We give you information to stay on top of your investments and all the hard facts you'll need to navigate your day. If you miss us on air, you can keep up to date on our website and on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. We are ANN, African News Network. We do news right in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. The World Health Organization has said the coronavirus pandemic is accelerating in Africa, spreading to the hinterland from capital cities where it earlier arrived with travelers. WHO also said on Thursday, Africa will have a steady increase in COVID-19 cases until a vaccine is developed, and strong public health measures are needed in current hotspots in South Africa, Algeria and Cameroon. WHO's Africa Regional Director, Matshidiso Moeti, named 10 countries that are driving Africa's epidemic, accounting for 75% of the more than 200,000 cases on the continent, with 5,000 deaths reported. South Africa, Nigeria, Algeria, Egypt, Ghana, Cameroon, Senegal, Democratic Republic of Congo, Guinea and Ivory Coast account for nearly 80% of all cases. Dr. Moeti said constant vigilance is needed to stop coronavirus from overwhelming Africa's health facilities. South Africa is reporting a spike in crime rates after lifting alcohol ban. The country has lifted restrictions on the sale of alcohol on June 1st after coronavirus restrictions were eased to level 3. On Thursday, Police authorities listed several crime incidents that involved drunk suspects, saying there was a need to reconsider the partial lifting of the ban. Travel Andrews reports.
It's been like this ever since the prohibition of alcohol was lifted. A long line of customers queuing outside liquor stores throughout the Western Cape. Many have been stocking up on alcohol out of fear that a new ban could be in the pipeline. But the Western Cape government, though, is taking a different approach to its Eastern Cape counterpart.
We must be very careful and get the balance right, in my opinion. We mustn't, in any point, kind of close down the economy completely. But we have seen, if we manage and police the alcohol sales carefully, and that includes distribution of alcohol into our townships over weekends, if we manage and control and police that properly, we can bring down the number of alcohol-related murders, etc.
Statistics show most murders are occurring from Monday to Thursday when alcohol sales are allowed, and the informal townships have become hotspots. Since Lockdown Regulation 3 kicked in, the strong visual policing presence of roadblocks has been removed and restrictions of movement has been relaxed.
I'm just really worried about going to a police state. We have a constitution in this country, and we still need to adhere to the those clauses in the constitution that speaks to very basic and fundamental rights of all citizens. And I think one must always just respect that and remember that. And we need to work out. The issue is not necessarily blocking everything, closing and banning. The issue is us managing it, policing it properly, so that we can solve the problem.
For now, the local alcohol industry isn't bracing for a new ban just yet, but that's not stopping concerned consumers of waiting for hours each day to purchase their favorite tipple. While hospitals such as this are filling up with patients admitted for alcohol-related incidents, some even requiring beds earmarked for COVID-19 patients, the Western Cape government still believes it has a tightrope to walk, and that urging responsible drinking instead of prohibition is the correct way forward.
The Democratic Republic of the Congo and international aid agencies have launched a plan to tackle new Ebola outbreak that recently resurfaced in the country. New infections were found in Mbandaka, the capital of Equatorial Province. DR Congo says it has begun administering Ebola vaccinations in an effort to curb the spread of the virus. More than 2,000 persons have died of Ebola since August 2018. Chris Sokamringa reports.
DRC's health minister presides over a meeting in the northwestern town of Mbandaka to lay strategies of ending the new Ebola outbreak. The government and international health organizations have stepped up their efforts to contain the outbreak.
We have packed all the medical supplies that we will need to treat Ebola patients in the Bikoro health zone. We are working closely with other health partners to tackle this new outbreak.
The new Ebola outbreak has occurred at a time that the country is battling the world's worst measles epidemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and another Ebola outbreak in eastern DRC.
Health experts have found no link between the new Ebola outbreak in Mbandaka with the one in the east of the country. They believe the new outbreak was transmitted to humans from animals. Now the government and international partners have agreed to scale up their efforts to contain it by putting together $16 million towards the response.
More than 600 people have been vaccinated in Mbandaka and Wangata health zones so far. Some community members have joined the fight against the outbreak.
We have cases of Ebola in our area, so we keep telling people to observe the health guidelines and report anyone with symptoms of the disease to health workers. We are determined to end this outbreak.
We have been educating people here about this new Ebola outbreak voluntarily. We have no megaphone and no means of transport to travel around. We are making the sacrifice for the good of our community.
Mbandaka was hit by another Ebola outbreak in 2018 that left 33 people dead. Officials say the disease was contained in 3 months because of the collaboration between the community and health workers. The outbreak in eastern DRC occurred in a conflict zone and has dragged on for almost 2 years.
The death toll from a shipwreck carrying African migrants has risen to 46. The ship sank off the Tunisian coast this week. A senior civil protection official said on Thursday search operation is still being carried out. Tunisian Coast Guard recovered more bodies. On Tuesday, 20 bodies were found off the coast of Sfax after a boat carrying migrants on the Mediterranean Sea capsized near the city. A total of 53 people had set out on the boat at the weekend, aiming to reach Italy. The nationalities of those who were trying to make the crossing to Italy have not been officially released, but state news agencies suggested that a large number may have been from Ivory Coast. At least half of those who drowned were women. A court order has also been issued to investigate who organized the ill-fated crossing. Hundreds of dolphins in their various species have emerged around Algerian coast. An environment agent says the presence of dolphins is quite natural and it is good news for environment and indicates a healthy system. Many theories have emerged regarding such appearance of dolphins near the Algerian shores. Some say a decrease of pollution because of restrictions of activities and lockdowns due to COVID-19 could have contributed to nature. Dolphins in their various species were sighted gliding and jumping above the water close to the shore of El Hammamet, west of Algiers. The shots were captured by fishermen who were on their small fishing boats.
When we return, international news. Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development warns world economic output could shrink by more than 7.5%. And later, sport. Cast to decide Manchester City's UEFA ban next month.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, based in Paris, has issued a dire warning that if the world should return to lockdowns as a result of a second outbreak of COVID-19, world economic output could shrink by more than 7.5%. Correspondent Ross Cullen has the details.
The OECD's latest outlook, released on Wednesday, is titled "The World Economy on a Tightrope," and it does not sugarcoat the deeply worrying economic picture, calling the COVID-19 pandemic a global health crisis without precedent in living memory. The Policy Forum, which is based here in Paris, you can see the headquarters behind me, says the consequences of the pandemic will be severe and long-lasting, and the path to economic recovery remains highly uncertain. And while on one hand it praises countries' lockdown measures for slowing the spread of the virus, the OECD also says the confinement measures have frozen business activity, widened inequality, disrupted education and undermined confidence. Looking at specific countries, the Policy Forum says that Italy and France are being hit hardest by rising unemployment. It says the UK's GDP will fall the most, with a drop of 11.5% forecast for 2020. France isn't far behind, with economic growth here shrinking by 11.4%, 11.3% in Italy. The OECD cautions that public spending should be well targeted to support the most vulnerable, but fiscal stimulus packages do have consequences. The United States, Japan and Spain are the three countries set to see a more than 20% increase to their public debt levels under their current plans.
Palestinian activists rallied midweek in Gaza near UNESCO headquarters, where the Office of the United Nations Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process is located. The reason for the rally was to refuse Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's threat to annex a large part of the West Bank. The protesters carried banners saying, "Gaza, capital of Palestine forever," and "Gaza is ours, not the oppressors," as they waved Palestinian flags. Israelis are not quiet. Many of them are calling the Palestinian refusal to Netanyahu's annexation plan as a war crime and a crime against democracy. Thousands of Palestinians and Israelis have also protested against Israel's plan to extend sovereignty over parts of the West Bank. As the new coronavirus hit the United Kingdom earlier this year, thousands of drinking establishments were closed in March. Many have wondered if the pubs can weather the storm and bounce back after COVID-19. As Juliet Mann reports, UK pubs are adapting to post-COVID-19 survival.
Days like this were made for that great British institution, the pub. Alas, in lockdown, 47,000 drinking establishments in Britain closed their doors overnight. But resourceful landlords are tapping into what their customers want.
You miss us so much. There's some of us who do miss it so much. And also, it's made everybody around here happy.
We could sit at home and drink, but it's not the same as drinking in a pub.
It's just nice to have a slice of normality back.
Just love having a cold pint in the sun.
The pandemic has hit the beer and pub sector hard, an industry already grappling shifting consumer habits, tax rises and wage increases. Desperate to stem the losses of lockdown, some switched from being pubs to hubs, providing vital services to their neighbourhoods.
It's not a pub anymore, it's a corner shop. Takeaway drinks, takeaway food, serving the local community. Well, we don't see as a future. We hope to get back to normal, to be honest, because the UK is all about a great British pub.
But getting back to normal will mean adapting the business model.
This section of the pub is currently closed, but the owner's already thinking about what changes they'll need to make when the pubs can reopen. They're looking at the layout, maybe introducing more table service and reducing time spent propping up the bar.
But downsizing capacity could give some pubs a hangover they won't recover from.
The pub is the original social network. It's where we go to connect with our friends. And so it does provide significant challenges when it comes to social distancing. At the moment in the UK, we have 2 metre social distancing, and that would only bring into play about 30% of pubs in the United Kingdom. If that was reduced to the WHO standard of 1 metre, though, you're opening up 75%. We have done a survey of our members and 40% said they would not be able to survive till September. That is a stark statistic, and we need to make sure we can find a pathway to open our pubs so that we don't lose those pubs forever.
The UK government says it's going as fast as it can to reopen the industry, but more might go al fresco to avoid calling last orders too soon.
Cheers. All the best, darling. Yeah,
World experts are putting their voices together to call for global cooperation in economy, environmental, and issues of developing vaccine for COVID-19. More than 100 experts from nearly 50 countries participated in the online forum. Correspondent Liu Yong reports.
Drugs, the vaccines,
World experts called for strengthening global governance, saying only through solidarity can humanity win the war over COVID-19. 160 think tanks and media representatives from 48 countries and 9 international organizations joined the discussion via virtual platform. Experts from Egypt, Russia, Japan, Kyrgyzstan, Slovenia, and SCO said China's assistance to many countries is a model of solidarity.
It is very obvious that this crisis, this virus crisis, can only be dealt with and conquered by all nations working together. That's the way to deal with it quickly. Sadly, we haven't had this situation. Many nations have gone different ways. They haven't learned from each other. They haven't trusted each other. It meant that in many nations, the problem of the virus has been much worse than it needed to be.
Representatives from Australia, Belgium, the US, South Africa, and the WTO stressed that all countries should deepen cooperation in economic recovery, vaccine R&D, environmental protection, digital governance, and support for developing countries.
实际上，在中国呢，我们
Our institute has cooperated with Harvard Medical School on several research projects, including vaccines, and now we have had a number of exchanges about treatment, diagnosis, vaccine development, and so on. We also have cooperated on vaccine development between China and Canada.
China is able to get out of it a little faster, but China is also a country suffer from this. But I think all the countries must have gone through all this process, and then have actually a lot of common experience, common feelings, and common experience that we work together.
Experts point out that safeguarding the destiny and health of humanity with science and promoted construction of human health community through cooperation. The forum also launched the Global Think Tank Initiative to fight COVID-19. Experts also joined discussions on specific subjects, including the effective measures for global economic governance in the post-COVID-19 pandemic era and public health, a new global priority. They stressed that there is a worldwide need for common standards in safeguarding the economic recovery and a global need for COVID-19 testing and vaccine production.
Up next, sport. Cast to decide Manchester City's UEFA ban next month. Please stay with us.
You are watching
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sports, the Japanese, Singapore, and Azerbaijan Grand Prix have been cancelled because of the coronavirus pandemic. Formula One has announced the races will not hold in 2020. The historic event at Suzuki will not hold as a result of Japan's ban on many international travelers. Races in Singapore and Baku cannot be held because the street circuit cannot be built in the current climate. These cancellations mean F1 has lost 3 key Grand Prix to the COVID-19 crisis. Japan and Singapore are 2 of the most prestigious and popular races on the calendar. Manchester City are set to find out next month if their appeal against a 2-year ban from European competitions would be in their favour. A 3-day hearing at the Court of Arbitration for Sport ended yesterday. The panel is now at the stage of deliberations. Manchester City were handed a 2-season Champions League ban and ordered to pay a fine after being found guilty of breaches of financial fair. Witnesses from various countries gave evidence via video conference with the participants of UEFA and Manchester City watching. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Have a safe weekend.